Hopefully all the new crap with Equinox is going to make them not nerf Excalibur. The Excalibur update's been out for a while now, and I've seen some people on YouTube trying to figure out how to mod him, going for a few things, mostly tanky versions of Excalibur. Some people want to slap a whole bunch of power strength on him, trying to get Exalted Blaze damage up. And since he is pretty good now, I wanted to try to see if I could find what it is that would give it the most out of Excalibur. So obviously, I went through, I had the basics on right now, health, armor, bit of efficiency, mostly neutral, damage, range, and duration. Though I haven't seen people using the Excalibur augments very often, so I was wondering if they were still viable, which led to this bit of background that you see now. For the record, if it's shaky or whatever, I have not recorded in quite a while and I need to fix my streaming stuff. For anyone that is familiar with Warframe and notices the Summer Prime on my back, please ignore that. I just got that and I'm trying to power level it, so it's just there, mostly for show. Overall, I was very surprised with how Excalibur performed, especially after 50 minutes, given that the enemies were approaching level 100, and by the time I ended up leaving the mission, they had passed the level 100 barrier. For anyone that doesn't know, just as a reference, at level 100, the Void Gunners have about 2.3 million effective health, and they'll do about 500 damage per second. So I'm pretty impressed with being able to survive as long as I did before I ran out of life support. More to the point, I've seen that although his augment mods were interesting, given the slight changes to Excalibur's kit with the introduction of his new ultimate that I am currently destroying everything with, they all seem to be a bit helpful in different ways. Just wasn't sure which one, if any, would be good in a build. However, going down the list, the slash dash augment surging dash increases the combo counter by 4. So for those of you that don't know, for every time that you get, I think it's 5, then 15, 45, you get a damage multiplier on subsequent melee attacks, where 5 attacks gives you 1.5 times damage, 15 gives you 2 times, 45 gives you 2.5 times, 135 gives you 3 times, and it keeps going. Of course, I'm pretty sure that if you have to hit an enemy 405 times to get that 3.5x damage, there was something very wrong, because you should be dead, and it should be dead. And I'm not sure what you're trying to prove. Max duration low-key. But for the sake of this mod, its purpose is that after using the slash dash as first ability, that you'll get bonus damage on melee attacks afterwards. So for this to be true, a good base number would be 2 times damage. That's essentially the standard for a crit, which would require hitting 5 enemies. So 5 enemies together doesn't sound like that much. Just hitting 5 enemies, especially since he now will, bounce between targets, unlike before when he just went in a straight line. Although it doesn't sound like much, in practice it's far more difficult to find 5 enemies that you can get to and get that for it to be worth it. And if you were to try to get up to the 2.5 damage, it would require hitting 12 enemies, which, once again, I'm going to make a point at the 12 enemies that, once again, 12 doesn't sound like that many enemies. However, 12 seems to be a magic number of absurdity, and I'll explain why later on down this list. For now, moving on to Radiant Finish. What was for a while everyone's favorite augment for Excalibur. Finally, he was able to be really, really useful until they changed it so you don't need Radiant Finish to do the finishers anymore. Now, the ability only gives you extra damage with the augment. So you'll get the 300% damage on top of your multiplier, which is only damage. People can usually just mod with power strength for this, so it's mostly overlooked now. Third one, and the final one, for now, being Furious Javelin, where enemies hit by the radial javelin will increase melee damage by 5%. the ability will hit a base of 12 enemies. It has a 25-meter radius. So you'd think, with a 25-meter radius, once again, 12 enemies, it's not that many. That's a pretty wide area. It's not like Slash Dash where you just had to go in the one direction. However, this was actually the one I was testing in this footage. So note that I completely stopped using Radial Javelin. That's how useless this was. It is very, very unlikely that you will have 12 enemies around you to get that, I think it's 65% extra melee damage. The most I was able to hit when I felt like I was getting swarmed was 6 to get 35%, which is completely insane that it is just not worth it. You get more with using something like, well, actually, any power strength mod at all would do better. Now, there is no augment for Exalted Blade because, well, the ability just came out, for one. But I can imagine that because everyone and their grandmother loves Exalted Blade so much, I can imagine it being like when they were going to make the Soma Prime. Everyone thought, oh, it's going to be the most epic god gun. We're going to have the Death Star gun, and it's going to obliterate everything, and our computers are going to explode in a fantastical explosion of blue screen from its awesomeness. And then it came out and had modest buffs, and everyone that had dreamt that it was going to nuke everything that dare walk onto their screen, they got so disappointed. Anyway, since everybody loves Exalted Blade, though, they have been modding for the Exalted Blade, mostly using power strength to help get its damage up. Now, with all the power strength mods, you hit a cap of 184%, but this will give you a negative 55% efficiency, so your abilities will cost a little over half as much more. So if the ability costs 100, it will cost 155, etc. And you'll get a negative 27.5 duration, which basically means that your ability's duration is cut by 1/3. Because Exalted Blade does stack with melee mods, Steel Charge will bump up this to 244%. However, although you do get the extra polarity spaces using Steel Charge, since it is the only 9-point aura, you do lose 3 mod slots for getting all of that power strength. Now, I'm not going to count anything that you stick on the melee weapons, because Excalibur does have little things here and there where his melee weapon will affect Exalted Blade. Just note that I'm using a Skinto Prime with pretty much every utility thing on there. Life Strike, very essential for what I'm doing, by the way. Berserker, Fury on there just for the attack speed. Spoiler Strike for damage, things like that. Oh, also, I have Reflex Coil on there just to make the channeling better, because I'm living on energy right now, in case you can't tell. Back to what I was saying before I got distracted. If we remember that augment that everybody loved and forgot about, we note that I said it gives a 300% more damage for any stealth attacks at base for enemies blinded by your second ability. Note that 300% is greater than the 244% if you put so much dedication into power strength. And I bring this up now because shortly after, I realized that the Furious Javelin was not going to cut it, I just started blinding and seeing what would happen, and I was getting not the full stealth multiplier, mind you, but a good portion of the damage just from swinging, because a big thing people have about using the blind is that you're stuck in a finisher animation. You can die and finish your animation. It takes forever. And yet I was able to just slash away with my Exalted Blades, and it was doing a good amount of damage. And anything that it was really, really tanky, like those gunners I was talking about, I could just, hit them, stagger them, on my way to them, do one last finisher, and it just destroys them. They can't do anything because they're blind. Probably the only reason why I was able to survive as long as I did. What you have to understand is, if you're willing to use Radial Blind in conjunction with Exalted Blade, the damage is far superior to any power strength build. And I suppose if you wanted to be a complete nut job and just stick this on there with like a limbo or something keeping you alive, then you probably would you probably would end up breaking like level, I don't know, I want to say 300-ish. Provided that limbo is able to keep you in the rift. Although I do like that Radial Blind does help out Excalibur a lot. I am a bit on the fence because before the rework, the only thing good about Excalibur was his Radial Blind. That's what everyone with a brain modded for. Sure, if you wanted to, you could just get a bunch of power strength, run with a group of people with corrosive projections, and spam your ult just to mow them down quickly, but that would not be very good the further you went. So now that he's able to actually do this, because know that I have great efficiency, I have 60% efficiency on this build, I have good armor, I've got basically everything that I need, I have 103% range and duration, because it was either that. Note that I also don't have an Excalibur slot. If I had to choose, I would stick on Handspring in the Excalibur slot. It's nice to have it. And I'd say that it's not much, it's not some try-hard rank 10 everything build, it's just, something that you could work towards as a beginner. Most of these are mods that you'll find on the way to doing anything, and you'll end up probably going pretty far if you're willing to stick with Excalibur. He's not good for everything, he's not going to get you through a defense or something, but as far as just being able to kill crap and take care of himself, he does pretty good. So I'm just going to leave it running until the mission's over, just so anyone is familiar with Warframe, they can probably look and marvel at how this is almost Phoenix Interception all over again.